What's up, everybody? My name is Tiffany Harris, and I'm here with my co-host, Coach Devin Buchanan. This is the Co-Ed podcast. We want to welcome everybody. This is a space for teachers, but all are welcome. It's an educators podcast and a podcast community for confessions, collaboration, communication, and of course, a little bit of controversy. So just join us each and every week. We'll have up a new episode or so. Add some comments below. Subscribe to us on Spotify, um, and YouTube and Instagram and anywhere you want to find
Oh,
us.
I was gonna hold my mic, but I'm gonna attach it here. A little easier. A little
It is a little
easier.
easier. You could.
Yeah.
I feel more. I feel comfortable in this
There
space
we go. There we go.
to be able to
Cool.
project.
Cool. So I'm excited about today's topic because we're both educators. And thinking about this topic, I was like, what would I actually want? Like
Mm-hmm.
what would fit my lifestyle? So here's the question. Would you rather have traditional um 3 months or whatever, average 2.5, 3 months off over the summer?
Okay.
Or would you rather have kind of like trimesters or quarters where you go to school for maybe 2 to 3 months, you have a month off. You go to school 2 to 3 months, you have a month off, but you go to school all year round, right? And so I kind of want to talk about the benefits of, both,
Mm-hmm.
what your preference is, but also, some of the downfalls, because I think, we talk about a system, and I want to, hear from some of our watchers, some of our viewers, like, what do y'all think? Like, what would you rather have? So I'm gonna put that to you. What would you rather have? What do you think?
Um. So in the current construct, I kind of like having the summers off, mainly because in Philly, um, the way it's set up, a lot of buildings don't have the systems to be able to like the air conditioning systems to be able to combat the heat.
Yeah.
However, in a perfect world, if those things were not obstacles we had to face, I would like the either quarters or trimesters. I think that possibly breaking it up 2 months on. I wouldn't want to go a month off every time, only because the amount of learning that can be lost in that period.
Yeah.
So I would say like 2 weeks. Um, and then in the hotter months, maybe doing a month off for like the end of July to middle July to the middle of August,
Yeah.
or kind of setting that up for when it's the hottest time
Yeah.
for Philadelphia, so that that wouldn't be a pool. And how would you set it up?
I mean, first of all, I want everybody to get air conditioning. Like, we in 2023. It's 20 about to be 2024. Why
Mhm.
are we talking about people being hot in a school? That's
Yes.
that's my first thing. That's my
Yes.
first thing. So in a perfect situation, we all have access to some air conditioning during the summer.
Right.
That's the first thing. Second thing is, um, I I want longer periods off. I
Okay.
think I think that school and the whole system is antiquated in the first place. And so I'm the guy that's for drastic change.
Okay.
So I'm like, hey, let's go to school for a couple months, and I'm all about experiential learning. I recognize that there's daycare that people have to deal with, and
Mhm.
when you off for a month and all these things. So, you know, let kids come to school optionally and get some experiential learning, get some, go out into the community and engage with other nonprofits, other things like that. That's where I think the school can go. For me, I want to be able to take a month off so I can travel, so I can concentrate on the wellness of, myself as a teacher,
Mhm.
but also, for my family. Like, I have a daughter, so I want to be able to travel, give her opportunities to kind of see the world and not just have to worry about what are the constructs. Like, we might have to pay more for a flight because everybody's traveling at the same time.
Mhm.
I think the whole system is kind of set up for, you know it's a whole system. Like, they know that everybody's going to be traveling because 80% of the world of the country is at school during this time. And
Mhm.
so I just think offering some more options. Now, I definitely know there are some pitfalls to that. Like,
Mhm.
we kind of talked about that a little bit. Like, there's a lot of things. You talked about learning loss.
Yes, I did talk about learning loss. students when they come back in the summer, it's like you have to get them used to being a student
Yeah.
all over again.
Yeah.
So um, in those times, like it then takes away from the amount of time that you can get to the next subject or to the next topic. So having 2 weeks, I think that's a good amount of time. Does anybody remember that one magical school year? It was where we had 2 straight weeks off because of how uh, Christmas and New Year's landed. It's a beautiful time. I feel like teachers and students came back refreshed, ready to learn, ready to jump in, and teachers knew that they had the 2 weeks coming, so it's easier to like plan for things
Yeah.
in their head. They know that they can get some things done and still have time to relax after the holiday season because often we're like, by the time we get to relax after the holiday season is over and we're right
Hmm.
back at PD.
Yeah.
So I just think that maybe offering alternative learning spaces during those 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and even if it is a month, because I do think that there could be we break it up in a different way
Yeah.
because I do understand that there is a pool and people have families and trying to organize everything into one thing with the world changing. Um, so I think it would give teachers the ability because they can opt in to
Hmm.
still work during these 2 week periods of time and they can
Yeah.
offer something that they're more interested in, such as maybe they can offer the cooking class or maybe they can offer photography or something that was more of an interest. And I think that would also help build relationships because they would see them not just as a teacher but somebody outside of that. And it also gives other people and outside of just teaching things that they can now offer more on a full-time basis for that period. Everybody, it would be the biggest shift ever
Yeah.
because everybody's mindset would have to shift. Out of school time mindset would have to shift. Um, but this is a perfect world. That's what we're just saying. Hypothetical.
Hmm.
Just think of Sims if we could make
Yeah. I
it
know, right,
and
right. If
make
we
all the
could
rules.
create
We
it
know
ourselves.
this is not a possibility for a very long time because of all the other pieces.
Yeah, yeah. You said something that I think is interesting though, is oftentimes the school doesn't give teachers the chance. Well, I don't want to say the school. The system in general doesn't give teachers the opportunity to teach their interests, right?
Hmm.
They teach their subject matter.
Hmm.
You go to school for this particular thing, but no one, you don't go to school to photography so you can teach photography in the educational system.
Right.
And so a lot of teachers have other interests and access to these kids, but don't have the opportunity to teach those interests.
Hmm.
And so where is the opportunity? Where can we kind of shift the system to be able to say, yo, we're going to use these people who are gifted, right? Because I
Hmm.
think if you're an educator and you're a good educator, you're a gifted communicator. And so I think that how can we use teachers in a way that they can offer more of those skills, whether it be trades or hobbies, things to kids
Hmm.
to raise the level of intelligence, intellect that's coming out of our school system, right? Like imagine if a teacher who really relates to students, even if they're let's say a special education teacher but has a gift in photography or art or whatever, and they can truly reach students in that and get paid for that.
Hmm.
That's that's the thing that I think about is like I think everybody should be paid for their gifts,
Hmm.
and we're paying teachers to produce
Hmm.
workers, not gifted individuals, right?
This
You
is
you
true.
might happen to be gifted,
This is true.
you might happen to have other skills, but um I don't think that we're providing an educational system that lends to producing gifted and talented kids coming out into the workforce. So that's where I look at kind of a shift in the system. That's why I say blow the whole thing up, man. Like
Hmm.
what I can't stand. You ever see that? I don't know if there's a creator called Prince EA,
Okay.
um, and he has all these videos, but he has one that's called "What Is School For?" And I often show students that because it talks about how students are sitting in there for 8 hours
Hmm.
and they're not really learning a whole lot, and then they have to ask to go to the bathroom and do all these things. And so, that's an individual day. But I think with a shift in the system to, hey, you know what, you're gonna go hard for these 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're gonna give you some time off to be able to engage in the things that you just learned, to bridge the gap between what you just learned and what you want to do with your life.
Okay.
And
Now,
so,
I see a benefit of that. I was just agreeing with
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I see schools now. There's schools out there now that have specific programs to get kids involved. In the school that I was at, spent an entire month doing expeditions, right,
Okay.
to get kids out of the classroom and into the community, to see, how a city operates, immigration, um, you know, cultural stuff, like going to different Japanese, what do they call them? Like the flower houses.
The
They
tea gardens.
yeah, the Japanese gardens, yeah. And so
Hmm.
going to those different places. And so I'm like, I really think we just gotta interrupt the system.
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect. There's definitely a disconnect of between what's being taught in the classroom
Yeah,
and how a student can use it or apply it in their everyday life.
yeah.
And we use that term often, but don't necessarily show, or their curriculum is not necessarily built for a lot of those exploratory options within what they're in the construct of what they're already learning.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a lot on the teacher to try to make that have to happen instead of having a curriculum that the thought is already built.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of would help teachers to think differently in how they can apply it instead of feeling like they need to create these ways on their own to try to make the lesson more engaging.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that can't be on the ownership of the teacher. It's
Yeah.
more about giving examples of
Mm-hmm.
how it could be applied.
Yeah.
And often we want teachers to model, but we don't model for teachers.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this disconnect for them where they have to feel like they make it up.
Yeah.
I do think that if that were what the system was built to do, is hey, we're going to learn these particular lessons for
Mm-hmm.
this particular period of time.
Yeah.
Now, these are the expeditions that you can choose from, or these are the things that you could choose from to do in the off season or whatever we're going to make it up to be, and then allowing students to choose, but it's part of the overall curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not this. I think that we can't make it optional. This
Yeah.
has to be what it is across the board for or maybe it just needs to be a school that runs like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't need to be a whole system because a school can kind of move the way move slightly different
Mm-hmm.
if they're depending on their school district and all that other good stuff.
Yep.
Uh and I also think that like just I don't know. I feel like I had a different upbringing in the sense that while I went to a lot of inner city schools, my family definitely took me for
Yeah.
out of city experiences.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I was able to see the differences and the similarities and be able to have like make my own inference from those things.
Yeah.
So how can in these smaller urban environments, how can we bring those experiences because money is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we bring more exposure and the school can be that place.
Yeah.
Um but not at the detriment of learning
Yeah.
because the flip side is this spirit of it's just a place of fun and now we're not pushing the same we're not giving the same academic push because
Mm-hmm.
or trauma, that's the other detriment,
Yeah.
because we want to focus on the negative and we want to focus on or we want to focus too hard on the positive that we're not actually focusing on the learning. There's a place for all of it.
Yeah.
There's a place of understanding what trauma people have been through but still not taking away from that. Okay, you've been through this, but how can we progress you forward?
Mm-hmm.
And we can have fun, but we can have fun while we're learning.
Yeah.
Like where we have to find that middle ground,
Yeah.
because otherwise it's just too far in one direction or the other.
Yeah. I think you definitely you shared a lot of points in that. We talked about trauma, we talked about experiences and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately the system uh isn't, we know from personal experience, it's not set up to give the overall sim. Like, we're talking about public school because you said, well, a smaller school,
Mm-hmm.
has the opportunity to do these things. And I think, we talked about so much, and that's why, like, people go to private schools,
Mm-hmm.
people seek these things out. And you might be a parent who is like, yo, I really want to get my kid into that opportunity.
Right.
So maybe we don't have, the ideal school system where get all this time off and then we get to do these experiential learning and do all this stuff. But maybe I can get my kid into a school that has study abroad
Mm-hmm.
or that has these types of opportunities. Now, not everybody has access to that. And
This is
so
true.
you talked about, well, maybe your parents, because you go to a school that doesn't have those resources,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have the AC that we talked about, like
Right.
like daggone it,
Right.
so maybe you're a parent that seeks out those opportunities. You're like, you know what, I'm going to save my money, for the next 3 months because I know spring break is coming up and I want my child to be able to travel somewhere, see something they've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That bridges the gap between what they've learned in school
Right.
and then what they want to do with their lives. It's 1+1 will always equal 2. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if they're not getting it in school, and I was afforded that opportunity, I went to a small private school, and my parents sacrificed, and we didn't travel that much. So I got the opportunity to do some things through my private school, but then also, I had an aunt that lived in Virginia, and so
Okay.
every summer, my mom was like, "You're going down there. That's your travel. That's your travel. So have a good time." And I urge parents to seek out those opportunities
Mm-hmm.
and make sacrifices because it's an investment,
It is
right? Like, if you invest in your child, it comes back. It really, really does. And I could talk about that in a whole
a
nother
whole other
episode,
episode. Yes.
about the investment in me and then how it comes back, that all type of thing. But, the system isn't set up for that. And so, it's people like us who take on that responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We both, work to provide opportunities. I'm fortunate to run an organization called the Focus Youth Network that does just that, that tries to bridge that gap between what kids are learning every day and then what they want to do with their lives. And Tiffany works with me,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's very skilled in her own right in
So
well,
my focus, I was
that
about
I
to
was I
say,
was like, go ahead,
my
do
focus
you
is
talk
more on
about it.
communication and how to leverage what we've been through and our experiences and
Hmm.
things that we've seen and or heard, because it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily all have to be something that we've been through,
Yeah.
and how can we hear other people's experiences and kind of get to a common ground. It doesn't mean we always have to agree. It just means that understanding helps us to grow better and
Hmm.
hopefully get pieces of everybody into the next level. So I like having conversations and helping that communication between parents and their students, especially when students are making those big transitions, either from that middle school to high school jump
Yeah.
or that high school to college jump, because that's a scary jump for parents.
Yeah.
Um, and trying to leverage that control and how much they need to step in versus
Hmm.
give their kid that control.
Hmm.
And also with teachers being able to communicate with some of those tough students, and kind of recognizing things in themselves
Hmm.
that it doesn't mean that you're wrong. I'm not saying it because of that. It more is, what are my triggers?
Yeah.
Because I know me, there are certain things that just bother me more than the next person that I'm going to react differently to than the other person. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong for not reacting like that. We just have different experiences for why.
Hmm.
And understanding ourselves can help us to be respond better in the classroom to certain situations and certain students and parents. Um, and hopefully one day be able to have a different communication style overall.
Hmm. Absolutely. Now, I love that you're such an effective communicator,
Mm.
and helping young people understand a little bit more about who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding their gifts. And I love that. I love that connection that we have. And so, this has been great. We want to continue this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
continue, so many other important conversations to have. And so check us out, y'all. first thing I'm going to ask you to do is wherever you are, go ahead and subscribe. So right now, if you've gotten to the end of this, that means you've enjoyed it. You've enjoyed the conversation because we've been rapping for like 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
So go ahead and subscribe now. And then also share this out, right? Like go to your social media, share this with a friend, share this on your page because, we want to start this conversation of how can we make the system work for us. If we can't change the system, how can we make it work for us? And I think that's kind of where we are right now, helping teachers, helping families, helping young people get all those skills. So this is the Co-Ed Podcast. I'm Coach Devin Buchanan.
I'm Tiffany Abney Harris.
And thank y'all for checking us out. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.
Mm-mm.